Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to mismapasion, and the WSL season for 24-25 has officially drawn to a close, but despite the season being over, the drama has already begun to kick off before the table has even been reset. So with that tantalizing preamble in mind, let's talk about the end of the season and the start of the new era for the WSL. We begin our review with champions Chelsea welcoming Liverpool, with the only thing being somewhat on the line was Chelsea's unbeaten streak, which would not be threatened too much given that the opposition were out of form coming into this encounter. Stamford Bridge was relatively packed, and the home side were on hand to deliver a pantomime performance that kept the crowds entertained, well, especially with some great attacking and pressing that unfortunately did not yield a goal despite some good attempts in both halves, with Baltimore being a particular live wire throughout. Liverpool, for their part, were really just hanging in there, as their opportunities to attack, much less to even have the ball, were very few and far between, and were actually lucky that their opponents, though blasting in shots, were not finding the back of the net. Otherwise, it would have been a massacre, but credit must go to Rachel Laws, who contributed a fair share to try and keep things level. Unfortunately, all of her hard efforts would pay for nothing, as in the fleeting remainder of extra time in the second half, Aggie Beaver-Jones would be allowed to charge forward and fire away near post to beat Laws and secure the only goal of the game to ring in the title celebrations for the Blues that had the added sweetness of becoming invincible. From west to north, where Arsenal returned to the Emirates one final time for the season in a high-stakes match against Manchester United, with an automatic Champions League spot being on the line. With the Gunners having made life difficult for themselves in the lead up to this game, whereas United had come into it with high spirits, it was really anyone's guess as to how it would all go, and it went absolutely up in flames. This match was, in no uncertain words, a glorious car crash of a spectacle, with all logic or tactical acumen completely going out the door to be replaced by vibes and inshallah. Within 2 minutes, a howler of a punch clearance from Tola's choice capitalized on by Chloe Kelly to put the home side in the lead. United were not dismayed with the early setback, and Grace Clinton exemplified this the most, the fierce effort from the edge of the box as Zinsberger managed to claw out of harm's way. The Gunners' goal league would have to unfortunately not get to enjoy her moment in the sun, as United would soon equalize thanks to a header from none other than Ella Toon off the back of a corner to keep the tensions palpable. The first half would be a sprint finish with both sides having an opportunity to take the lead, but neither could. Not that it was a problem for anyone watching, nor the players themselves, of course, since the second half began with a goal rush of its own, with Mariana Caldente effortlessly dispatching a penalty just 5 minutes into the second half after Caitlin Ford was brought down in the box, before Frida Monum would double the Gunners' lead just a few minutes later with a precise shot from quite a narrow angle before Gunners captain Kim Little rifled in the fourth for her side after finding more than enough space to react and put Arsenal firmly in the driver's seat. The home team were looking to be on their way to securing their spot in next season's group stage, but they really put in a lot of effort to try and make sure that they wouldn't, as not one but two individual errors at the back, none of which were from Zinsberger, told the haters online out there, which allowed for Turlin's effort for the first one to find the back of the net before an errant tackle from McCabe onto Bizet granted United their own penalty that Maya Letitia made sure to put away viciously to set up an intense climax for both sides with just 15 minutes to go. Ultimately, it would be the Gunners who emerged victorious, the Gunners clinging on to their narrow 1-0 lead to secure second place and a group stage berth in the Champions League next season to round out their season with an important and morale-boosting win ahead of their Champions League final in a few weeks against Barcelona in Portugal. From south of the nation to north, as we head to Manchester, where City took on this season's relegation side at Crystal Palace, and what was a much of a match with any stakes, and it showed early on not only from City's uncharacteristic sloppiness early on, but by Palace's sucker punch of an opening goal that benefited offset sloppiness, with Veerden being the one to get her name on the score sheet first in the very first few minutes of the game. Crystal Palace's early fortune did not last, unfortunately, as Carolyn would find the equalizer just less than 15 minutes later as the cold water had finally hit City's face. The Sky Blues' dominance continued to grow, and the likes of Jess Park came close to multiplying the lead, but it just wasn't happening for them just quite. The same, though, could not be said for the Eagles, who made their efforts count much more, as the visitors would find their second of the game with a nicely finished goal from Gagey, who against the run of play to restore Palace's lead going into the second half. Having been rocked yet again, City had work to do, but being as they were, It never appeared to be in any way or shape impossible for them to come back, and they seemingly had done so in just 32 seconds. But unfortunately, Lauren Hemp's faux equalizer was ruled offside. Despite the warning signs, Palace didn't seem to get the message, and just after the hour mark, the Eagles would bemoan their reclusivity as City would finally draw level thanks to a knock-on from Jules Ward after a Carolyn effort was saved by Yanez. The latter would be picking the ball out of her net not too long after, as City took the lead for the first time in the game just 3 minutes later, with Rebecca Kanak heading home from a corner. Carolyn and Kanak would find themselves on the score sheet once again, with each getting a brace, even though the former's goal was arguably offside, definitely off in my view, to round out City's comeback 5-2 victory over Crystal Palace, to again round out their WSL campaign with a nice victory that sees the Eagles return to the championship with their heads sunk. And still remaining up north, the We Beat Arsenal derby was next, with Aston Villa welcoming Brighton and Hove to Villa Park in a fight between 5th and 6th. And as has been expected of Aston Villa in the last couple of games, they started off quite well and came close to opening on a few occasions, with the usual suspects of Ebony Salmon and Rachel Daly threatening early on. The former would be the one to strike first after Villa's early salvo finally managed to breach the Seagulls' defense. The Brighton team, to their credit, did attempt more than once to get back on level terms, with Agyemang proving closest but failing to finish off her sitter. The visitors would rue the stroke of fortune, as towards the stroke of halftime, the villains would get their double from lead marksman Rachel Daly to really stamp the authority going into the second half. The remaining 45 was really pedestrian in earnest, and it was the same home team in Aston Villa who were strolling their way through the game, as just about everything they tried came off without a hitch, be it going forward or defending at the back, despite Brighton not really offering much to make the home defense sweat, despite some really poor luck inflicted onto Seke and Frank Kirby, whose concurrent efforts both rattled the post and ricocheted out. The same fortunes would not befall their opposition, as the outgoing Mas Pacheco would round out the scoring for the villains with a roof-rattling effort to guarantee the win for her side. Despite managing a consolation from Nikita Paris, Brighton were more than happy to hear the final whistle blow, because they had honestly been run-ragged and really underperformed to end their season on a whimper, whereas Aston Villa's remarkable rise from practically the root of the table all the way up into the top 5 is just remarkable, and is definitely something worth building off of for the villains in the coming season. The penultimate game of the day saw another pantomime performance between Leicester City and their visitors West Ham United. In previous videos, I was banging on about how Leicester needed to win this game in particular to have any hopes of surviving relegation. Well, 2 relegation teams is a myth in the WSL, because guess what? Only one team gets relegated, so thank you to every one of you for letting me blab on about this like an absolute fool for the past 2 weeks. But anyway, jokes aside though, and my faith in the Foxes to pull off an insurmountable and non-existent survival push was repaid in the best way possible, as the Foxes absolutely tore into the London outfit. As had been thematic of the day so far, it took less than 10 minutes for the opener to be found, with Leicester goal-getter Janice Kieran benefiting from a loose ball, which she buried top bins. The Foxes were on top, and West Ham's usual recovery blitz from Martinez and Asei were not enough to dissuade the Foxes, who handled the pressure well and made good on their opportunities, especially considering that they weren't having too much of the ball. Said opportunities, though, would eventually give way to the second of the game, with Hannah Kane's central run being picked out well by Tierney, and the former needed the second bite of the cherry to put the ball past Shemek and give the home team the advantage to end the first half. More goals came in the second half, with West Ham finally getting themselves on the score sheet, as Viviane Asseyi floated a header home past Leipzig to restore some dignity to her team, before Kane would quickly restore the status quo with a chip shot after another great central run from her. It would be Asseyi again who would come to the rescue for her team just 4 minutes later after Kane's goal to fire home a banger of a free kick that the keeper had no chance of saving. But again, her efforts would once again be undone not too long after this time, with Sam Tierney throwing the egg back onto West Ham's face with an audacious volley against the run of play, with Shemek being considerably off her line to just pile on to the misery. The Foxes would deservedly run out 4-2 winners in this game, and yet another good way to sign off the season, whereas West Ham will definitely have some work to do defensively to make sure that next season they can continue to push and progress as they have done so well this season. Rounding out the final match day, Everton welcomed Tottenham Hotspur to their home in what was arguably one of the more competitive games of the match that was unfortunately not matched in the goals galore that we had been privileged to beforehand. For what it's worth though, one of the goals we saw was a screamer of a free kick from Everton's Sari, who went in and bent it in satisfactorily to give Everton the early lead. The Toffees, though, would not manage to really clamp their authority down on Spurs, despite their attacking superiority, as the lead-wise were finding semblances of joy in the opposition half, as well with Bet England as usual being a particular headache for the Toffees' defence. It would be England's insistence that would prove pivotal in bringing Spurs forwards, as a counter-attack prompted by the former Chelsea forward forced a deflective save from Brosnan, who parried the shot into the line of Drew Spence, who put her laces through it in to bring her team back into the fold. The second half was fierce and intense, with both teams wanting the coveted win to end their season on a high, and honestly, either one of them could have done so, with Kelly Gago and Jessica Nass in particular getting the pick of the bunch that could have led their teams to victory. Ultimately, neither side could find anything to separate themselves from each other, as the final whistle blew to signal the end of the only game of this match day without a winner to indeed close out the 24-25 WSL season. And with everything now officially wrapped up, these are the final standings of the season, as we can see, with Chelsea finishing not only as champions but as undefeated champions to boot, in what was honestly an excellent season for the Blues, who were followed by Arsenal, who despite a shaky start and end to their season, managed to consolidate their position in second with their narrow victory over third place Manchester United. Over on the bottom side of the table is propped up, of course, by already relegated Crystal Palace, followed by Tottenham, whose fall from grace honestly mirrors what the men's side have experienced this season, so maybe it was a club-mandated thing, who knows. And Leicester, of course, having come from behind to stave off imaginary relegation, finished in 10th, propping up the rest of the league from 4th to 9th. And with the end of the season, what do you think of everything that has transpired this year? What are some of the best and some of the most controversial things that have come out of it in your opinion, and how would you rate it out of 10? Personally, for me, I would go for a 7.5 out of 10. Why? Even though you didn't ask. I had fun watching and covering all the games, and the decision to stream on YouTube was really good. It was honestly a godsend of an idea that I hope the WSL bosses continue with for the foreseeable future, in addition to some much needed changes in less savory areas like player welfare, which will always be a drum that needs to be banged, the scheduling of some matches in addition to the standards of officiating in some cases, as well as improving the quality of the streams. But other than some issues like that, I think it was a very good season all around. So definitely a really good season all around, and hopefully more of the same, if not better, especially with those problem areas that I have discussed, but just fleetingly. And with all that being said, let me know what you thought of the season overall and anything else in the comment section below. Like, share, subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next one. What? You're still here? The video's gone. It's done. It's finished. Okay, alright. Yeah, you saw the thumbnail. Of course I've got to talk about it. I mean, who wouldn't? So, okay. If you stuck around this long, why not? Let me give you a little bit of a little thank you for sticking around this long. So, a word on the revamped visual image of the WSL coming next season. Now, a lot of things have been said about whatever this is, and yikes. Quite frankly, that new logo, whack! The new player name font, whack! The new player kit numbers, whack! The promo video trying to gas up the revamp like it's something worthwhile, whack! The logo being used on the WSL socials now, whack! What could possibly be the new trophy design masquerading as the logo? Question mark. Whack! The name change to the championship. Whack! Everything about this revamp is honestly just whack. It is whack, whackity, whack, whizzack, whack. And have I mentioned that it's whack? So yeah, something fixed got broken and somehow turned out even worse for wear. And a strange new horizon beckons for the WSL Cup 25-26 that honestly I think is going to not be in the favor of the league bosses. This this wasn't asked for by anyone. No one was begging for a revamp. These guys did it out of their own whims, I guess. Which sometimes revamps go good, but if the last couple of years have been anything to go by regarding brand revamps, yeah, you can put this one in the swipe left pile because yikes. I've already said that already, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know what these guys thought they were cooking, but the pot is burnt now. But I don't know. Maybe it'll grow on us. Maybe they'll change it back due to the backlash. We won't know. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on this as well because it's not looking good, bruv.